Today's encouragement comes from 1 Peter again. We're looking at Christ in 1 Peter, and then we looked at Christ, the risen Saviour, chapter 1, verse 3. We're given a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. Then we looked at Christ, the Redeemer, chapter 1 of 1 Peter, verses 18 and 19. And today we're going to look at Christ, the living stone, from chapter 2, verses 4 and 5. I'm just going to read verse 4. The most accurate translation sort of comes across like this: as you come to him, the living stone, rejected by humans but chosen by God and precious to him. And then verse 5 speaks about, and you also are living stones, build up a spiritual house, and to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God by Jesus Christ, or through Jesus Christ. But the title we'll look at of Christ is the living stone. And the word for stone is lithos, Lithos, and it's quite ironic that Peter is the one that writes about the Christ as a living stone. Of course, the name that the Lord gave to Peter in John chapter 1 in Greek means a rock, but here we see that Christ is a living stone. Here we see the paradox of these two things. How can a stone be living? But we see with Christ it's because of his resurrection power and the fact that he's alive that he can be described as the living stone. And in a world obsessed with power, Peter writes of a stone not cold or lifeless, but living. This stone is not just any foundation, it is Christ himself, chosen by God and eternally precious. And this imagery of the stone, it draws from the Old Testament, particularly Isaiah chapter 28, and the Psalm 118, I think refers to Christ as a stone, where the cornerstone is both the foundation of God's work and the object of human rejection. And of course, when we think of Christ, it's amazing to think that the only perfect person in the entire universe, it says in this verse, he is rejected by humans. Remember, he was rejected by the nation. They said, like it says in that parable, we will not have this man to reign over us. They rejected him at the cross. They hounded Christ at the cross. They said, not this man, but Barabbas. But the balance of the verse says, chosen by God and precious to him. So Jesus was the stone the builders rejected, dismissed by the religious leaders, betrayed by friends, and crucified by the world. But in God's plan, that very rejection became the basis of God's salvation. And so Christ's role, Jesus is the cornerstone. This was the first and most important stone in the building. And from this stone, of course, all other stones were put into place. And so Jesus Christ defines the shape, strength and purpose of his spiritual house. Though people saw him as unworthy, God exalted him as the very foundation of a new spiritual house, the church. And this is the encouragement for the Christians, and encouragement for us today is to remember that Christ is a living stone. He's the cornerstone. Peter doesn't stop at Christ. He says we too are built up into a spiritual house, and so we're united with Christ, but we also are living stones built into one spiritual house. And so we're connected with Christ, and we're connected with each other as a community of believers. And so we're being built into a temple of worship, a community of grace, and a dwelling place where God's presence lives. And so to come to Christ is to be joined with others in something far bigger than ourselves. A living, breathing, spiritual temple growing under the hands of the master builder, Christ, the living stone. And so on reflection, we might ask ourselves three questions. Are you anchored to Christ, the true cornerstone? This is only true of those that have trusted in Jesus Christ as their Savior. Are you letting God shape you, or am I letting God shape me as a living stone, even through hard seasons of life, whatever disappointment, disillusionment, discouragement, difficulty we face, God still wants us to be shaped and be shaping others as part of His spiritual temple. And then the third and final one is, are you embracing your role in the greater structure, the church? Because the idea is that as believers in our local churches, and also for every Christian, we build each other up to be one spiritual house. So thank you for listening, and remember, Christ is a living stone, and we are living stones, called, placed and united in Him. Thank you for listening.